Welcome, everybody, to Postgame Takeaways with Inside ND Sports. I'm Tyler James. He's the one and only Eric Hansen, and we're here to share our postgame takeaways from Notre Dame's 35-14 win over Virginia. Eric, what was your biggest takeaway from a weird day in Notre Dame Stadium?
That it was a weird day in Notre Dame Stadium and how fast the senior day thing goes now. It's like the whole thing goes faster than one hug used to be in the old days. But I mean, the thing that stands out to me is how good Notre Dame's defense is. I realize Virginia isn't the top offense in the country, but Notre Dame continues to just bully these offenses, especially their passing offenses, and really let the offense kind of find its footing in games. And I think it's going to be really interesting how far this defense will take Notre Dame in the playoffs should Notre Dame get there. Now, they have two really different challenges coming up the next couple of weeks, but the defense and Xavier Watts really were my biggest takeaways. How about you?
Yeah, I think you have to start with how that secondary just keeps impressing. Like, to intercept 3 passes today, Adon Schuler and Leonard Moore really sparked a late run by Notre Dame in at the end of the first half, sort of after the fake punt controversy. Schuler intercepts the pass, sets up Notre Dame for an easy touchdown. Then Leonard Moore intercepts a pass to end the next Virginia drive, and Notre Dame scores a couple of touchdowns in a couple minute span because of the defensive play. The secondary, Xavier Watts had the third one. Notre Dame didn't quite get another score out of that, but a lot was happening there at the end of that first half, and the secondary was doing its best to make sure that this Virginia team couldn't get anything rolling, and then creating plays for Notre Dame as well. So it just seems like any sense of life that opposing offenses have seems to get taken away by this Notre Dame secondary as of late. You look at the opposing quarterback numbers today, combined 17 of 36, so under 50%, 172 yards passing, 3 interceptions, 4.8 yards attempt. So it's not like Virginia's piling up yards through the pass. I think one thing that's notable, I thought, was Leonard Moore got banged up after his interception, and Notre Dame did not put another cornerback in. They moved Jordan Clark outside. So it seems like the trust for Carson Hobbs isn't quite there yet to put him in that position. And I think that might be noteworthy moving forward. Certainly it would be noteworthy if Moore were to miss any significant time, but obviously he ended up coming back and finishing the game. So crisis averted, at least for today.
Yeah. And going back to the defense before we talk about the offense, the thing that's become apparent to me, I mean, I thought going into the season that Ben Morrison was Notre Dame's best player, and he may be the best pro prospect on the team. But there's something that Watts does that I think takes over the whole secondary. I think he makes Jordan Clark better. And you heard Adon Schuler talk about it a little bit after the game, where he said, this is what I kind of take. You asked the question about from Xavier Watts's game. And you hear that constantly from these guys. I mean, I think one of the reasons we haven't seen this huge cliff of a drop-off between Ben Morrison and Leonard Moore is because Xavier Watts is there with setting an example, giving him great habits, getting people in the right places. If he's not an All-American again this year, I don't know what one looks like, because I think he is helping to raise Notre Dame's ceiling on what it might be able to do in the playoff. And I felt like early in the season, Tyler, that if Riley Leonard didn't turn into at least a well above average passer, Notre Dame just didn't have a shot to advance in the playoff. I think he's good enough now, when you pair him with that defense, that they have a fighting chance in these games.
Yeah, it really feels like the grading curve for Leonard has raised, right? Like, today wasn't his best day. Like, he threw a bad interception. He made some bad throws at times, but he still completed 67% of his passes for 214 yards and 3 touchdowns. So like those numbers are things that people would have been begging for early in the
Right.
season. And now he's doing that, and it still doesn't feel like he's maximized his play yet, which I think is a good sign. Certainly, you'd like to see him clicking on all cylinders at some point before Notre Dame gets to the playoff. But like you said, like what he's doing is good enough right now with the way Notre Dame's defense is playing, even in a first round playoff game, that I think Notre Dame could still win, even if Riley Leonard isn't carrying the offense with his arm.
Right. He had a stretch where he went 16 of 17 and he missed his first two throws and went 16 of 17. Then he cooled down late. I think the most alarming stat from the offense was 1 of 12 on third down. Now, again, they had some ugly penalties and some really bad negative yardage plays, running plays that put them behind the sticks a lot. And so they had a lot of third and not a mile, but third and really long that were really difficult to convert. And they also took care of business on some of their drives on first and second down where they never got to third down.
Yeah.
So, but I thought there were some other good things on offense. I thought Mitchell Evans continues to look kind of like the Mitchell Evans they need him to look like. I thought that was really a positive. Jaden Harrison jumped out today and I thought had a really good game. And then Jeremiyah Love, that was a career high in carries for him, with 16, career high in yards with 137. He scored a touchdown or more in every game. He scored more today too, but a touchdown in every game this season. And he's fresh. I mean, I was looking at the guys that were in the top 5 in the country in rushing yards per game, and they're all around 200 or more carries. They're just under 200 or just over. Ashton Genty going into today, I think, was at about 225. And Jeremiyah Love was at 91. He's fresh. He's ready to go. So he's now over 100 now. He's at a grand total of 107. So I think he's in a pretty good place.
Yeah, Love, as we've seen, always has that home run threat ability. He took that run off the right side for a big touchdown run. He scored the first touchdown of the game that was set up off the muffed kick return by Chris Tyree in a less than stellar return to Notre Dame Stadium for the former Irish player. But yeah, Love's important. That running game, I think, is something that Notre Dame's going to be able to continue to rely on. There's still inconsistencies here or there, especially when you have the holding penalties that just totally wrecks the offense, let alone the running game. And so Notre Dame still managed to be patient with it and mix in Price and Love. And I would be on board of getting Aeneas Williams some more touches. I think he every time he seems to touch the ball, he's picking up 8 yards. It feels like, so I wouldn't be upset about seeing him some, but yeah, I think it starts with Love. He's the one that's the most electric. I think he not only has the big play threat, but I think for the most part makes good decisions and good cuts to get the most out of a run. I think there was at least 1 or 2 today where it's like, okay, Jeremiah, you're trying too hard here. This isn't working. And they got to eliminate some of that. But I think you take it for what you can get out of Jeremiyah Love because he's done so much for this offense when given the ball. And I agree with you on Jaden Harrison. I think he deserves more playing time as well. He played more today because Jaden Greathouse went out early with an apparent injury. No injury updates after the game from Marcus Freeman tonight, but he got 3 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown, and had a 78-yard touchdown reception wiped out by a hands-to-the-face penalty by Pat Coogan. So they got to find ways to get him on the field because he's another guy that seems to always flash when he gets opportunities. So good problems to have. Now, Notre Dame's offense doesn't really have a lot of go-to guys, but they seem to have a lot of guys that can come up and make plays when needed.
People probably think I'm weeping over BYU losing. I'm not. I have a contact lens attacking me as we're recording this. So, but I'll make it through it.
Fight through.
I'll fight through it. But so now they're going to play Army, who's 9-0. They had a bye week this week. They will be playing in their conference championship. They'll be playing Tulane. With Tulane beating Navy today, everybody has 2 losses or more, except for those 2 teams that are undefeated. So they will play in the AAC championship. So Army is still hoping that Boise trips up and that Army or Tulane will be the 5th conference that's represented in the playoff. Then you're going to have to whiplash back to a traditional offense and one with still a lot of firepower. USC was able to beat Nebraska today to get back to 500, but they've been in every game. They played a lot of close games, and nobody's blown them out. And they still have a very good passing attack. So there's a lot of challenges left for this defense. We noted that BYU lost tonight to Kansas. That's not going to affect Notre Dame's seeding, but it definitely locks in that the Big 12 has no way of being a 2-bid league. It's either going to be Colorado, Arizona State, or BYU winning that conference and being the number 4 seed, most likely, unless Boise jumps them and becomes the number 4. And then the other thing was Tennessee losing to Georgia by a couple touchdowns. That'll put them behind Notre Dame, and Notre Dame will move into a home playoff position. They will likely be the number 8 seed when the new rankings come out from the College Football Playoff Committee on Tuesday. Tyler, you were a skeptic on Notre Dame winning out. What do you say at this point?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I came to the belief that Notre Dame would win out. I still believe that now. I mean, put your cornerbacks in a bubble wrap, I think, against Army to make sure they're ready to go against USC. I like the way this Notre Dame team is trending. Today wasn't the best game for Notre Dame. In a number of ways, like there were errors on seemingly every side of the ball. I think the defense played the best of the 3 units today.
Right.
The kicking game is a problem without Mitch Jeter. He didn't play in the second half after kicking 4 PATs in the first half, and you get 2 missed field goals by his backup. So Notre Dame needs to get that sorted out here down the stretch.
Did they have 2 backups, different backups making? Didn't Marcelo?
Yeah, that's why I said two backups attempted field goals.
Yeah.
And both missed. Granted, Marcello Diomede's 54-yarder was much more difficult than Zach Yoakum's 36-yarder. So it's feasible, it's reasonable for Notre Dame to win out, and as you sort of laid out there, it's both of those things in terms of Notre Dame hosting a home playoff game. So everything that Notre Dame wants is on the table right now. You just got to lock in for 2 more games, one at a time, and make sure you get the job done.
What do you feel like you need to see out of the offense in the last couple of weeks? Army's defense is good. I mean, the big difference between Army and Navy is Army does have a really good defense, and they play the more traditional keep away triple option. They are number 1 in the country in pass efficiency, but they don't throw it nearly as much as Navy does.
Yeah, I'd like to see some sustained drives from the offense. Fewer 3 and outs, less penalties certainly from tonight.
Yeah, wow.
The offensive
a lot of hands to the face
holdings. The offensive line needs to do a better job. Consistent, like they get nominated as a semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award, and I don't know that they had one of the better performances tonight. So we'll see if Notre Dame could get that figured out. But I think there's room for improvement across the board for all those guys. Like I mentioned earlier, the consistency in the running game, the not taking losses, the picking up 3 or 4 yards when there doesn't seem like there's much room to gain. And then even the receivers, some drops. I think there may only have just been one tonight, and it didn't matter because there was a penalty on the play anyways. But the receivers, I can understand how sometimes Riley Leonard's accuracy may be frustrating, but the receivers have not made enough plays on tough balls or even easy balls sometimes for my liking personally. So hopefully that gets tightened up down the stretch and sets up Notre Dame in a better position. What do you want to see from the offense?
500 yards of passing. No, I think just incremental improvement every week and them stay healthy enough. I mean, I would like to see the offensive line look like a top 10 offensive line, like the Joe Moore Award is giving them that semifinalist look. But I do think Riley Leonard, this version of him is going to be good enough to get into the playoff and possibly win a playoff game because I think Notre Dame's defense is that good that they need him to be a guy that executes more than they need him to be a guy that wins the game for them. Just, don't make mistakes, move the ball, and that's what he's doing. I mean, he did have a mistake today, but he hasn't thrown very many interceptions this year.
Yeah, just 4 interceptions. And with the offensive line, like, I don't care what Army's stats are. Like, there's no reason that Notre Dame, if it's a Joe Moore semifinalist, so Joe Moore Award semifinalist offensive line, shouldn't be able to physically impose its will on an Army offense or defensive front. So this is the kind of game that I think Notre Dame can show that and prove that, and we'll see if they can come through and live up to the billing. I don't think tonight was the best performance, but certainly some key blocks on some big plays for Notre Dame. Emil Wagner did a nice job on the long touchdown run by Jeremiyah Love. So I think there's good, it's a mix of good and bad there, but consistency and dominance is what they should be working toward up front.
As far as the playoff picture, I mean, there's things outside of Notre Dame's control that help it and hurt it. One of the things that hurt it was Louisville losing to Stanford today.
Yeah.
But Texas A&M is on track to play Texas at the end of the year for the top spot in the SEC championship game. I guess there's a way that they could lose and still play in that game, but they get into a icky tiebreaker, and there's a lot of teams with 2 losses. Each of those have one. Army's going to move up in the rankings. There were a lot of teams near the bottom that lost, and that's going to allow Army to move up a little bit. So that'll be helpful if they do move up and then Notre Dame subsequently beats them.
All right, Eric, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. So long for me in LaPorte, Eric in South Bend. Please hit the subscribe button and give us a like before you close out this video if you haven't done so already. You can also subscribe to us over at InsideNDSports.com with a 30-day free trial using promo code NDYT. We'd like to hear your biggest takeaways from Saturday, so let us know in the comments, and we will see you Monday night for Football Never Sleeps.